Now, Virginia has a very interesting history with the gubernatorial veto. Um, the governor who vetoed the greatest number of bills was Terry McAuliffe, who was our governor from 2014 through roughly 2021. He vetoed 111 bills. All right. So that was very, very interesting. Every state has this is what you must do to override the veto. You are pretty darn close in Texas, um, that I believe they could override the veto. Again, would they? So it would be if suddenly Governor Abbott got really progressive and justice minded on an issue, you are probably pretty darn close to a veto proof um, legislature. So you're going to want to look up those numbers. I'm not sure about Texas. And then the last part is the easiest part. This is what you're going to do when you go to Austin. Now, you're going to show numbers in the field, not in the office. So let's say you bring 20 people with you. You want 3 to 5 people going to visit an office. So that means if you've got 20 people, you're going to split into groups of 3 or 5. You're not all 20 going to show up in the office at one time. Now, here's your goal: have one expert in each group on the bill, someone who can talk to the bill. If it's possible, try to include at least one constituent, and that person can say, I'm actually your constituent. I live in city, whatever it is, when you're doing the introductions. Make sure you have a handout. Going on a lobby visit without a handout is like door knocking for GOTV and not leaving a handout. You're going to want to have a letter. And in your letter, you're going to want to have your positions on the bill, support SB da ding da ding da ding, because, and then you can use bullet points or turn them into sentences. The letter should be no longer than a full front page and a full back page in smallest type, 10 points. If they have supportive legislation like this in the past, mention it, and then make sure their staffers have talking points. Now, I had a list of every member of Congress and every bill they had ever co-sponsored, and I had to keep it by hand. This was before they had all these really great tools. So when I would generate, here are the legislators that we're going to see, I would go and see everybody that based on past legislation should be on this new bill, and they weren't. And then I would have people on the other side that were reasonable to talk to, meaning I knew their faith background or I knew something about them where it was they're worth at least having the conversation with, and or I knew they had a close relationship with another member that was supporting the bill. So your handouts are very important. So when you're going to Austin, what do you want to achieve? We want to see 30 legislators. We're going to see 20 people in the House. We're going to see 10 people in the Senate. And our goal is to get 4 sponsors, co-sponsors in the House, 2 co-sponsors in the Senate, or whatever. Who can give you what you want? tactics. How do you influence this person? Are there upcoming deadlines? Your looming deadline is when is crossover? And then who is the opposition? And then your meeting. Now, when I lobbied after a certain point by 2018, I never made appointments. I just showed up. And I probably saw more legislators in person than people who made appointments because the appointments were with staff. I would chase them into their office and see them. You are going to be going to the Capitol office, but it would be great to get people to go to the district office. You're already working on that demonstrated broad base of support. You've got letters. Action Network is free. I don't know if you have that, but Action Network has a petition tool. Everybody that signs is going to go on your email list. That petition doesn't go anywhere, but Action Network organizes everybody by their legislative districts. So you will know we've got 5 people that support in this district, 20 that support over here, whatever it is. Who should attend, 3 to 5 people, be respectful, be early, look presentable. Again, as church people, we are not going to show up in shorts and flip-flops. Sometimes people who are not church people, if they are going with you, might need that little reminder of how you want to appear. And if this is not something that you do all the time, maybe you want to practice it just so that people get comfortable. Now, when you get in the meeting, you are going to have some team roles. It's nothing worse than a lobbying meeting and everybody is sitting there and nobody's sure who's supposed to start. So who's your facilitator? They're going to run the meeting. Who are the storytellers? Do you have 1 or 2 constituents who can talk about how this legislation directly impacts them? Who is the person who is going to make the direct ask? Generally, it'll be to a staffer. Will your boss sign on to whatever the bill is? And then you wait for the yes and no. And then you've got the educator, the person who really understands the ins and outs of the bill in case the staffer or the legislator has a question. And then you've got that nice social person who is going to collect the cards of all the staffers that are there. They're going to take notes in the meeting. They're going to be responsible for sending the thank you note. And then they're going to work with you to plan what does our follow-up look like. And then introductions very, very quickly. Who is in the room, their name and their city, why we are here. 2 minutes, you're going to give them the petitions and or the letters. And then you're going to say, this is how this has impacted our community. Remember, I do this in 30 seconds. You're doing this in roughly 4 minutes. Then there is story time. The constituents talk about how this is impacting them. And then the ask. So, will your boss agree to be a co-sponsor of this legislation? Now, again, remember, staffers can't really speak for their boss, but they've got a good idea. Is this something they've supported in the past? So possibly, or they've never supported anything like this, so they have no idea. So let them say, no, I really can't see my boss supporting it. Why? What would it take to get them to support this? And generally, the staffers can answer that question. Thank you, and then you're out of there. If you are going to do a debrief, do not do a debrief in the legislative building. You never know who is there and listening. There's bound to be a coffee shop down the street. Go down there. Lobby meeting dues, engage the staffer. pause after each main point, ask if the staffer has any question, or again, it might be the legislator. And then if there's any points that are complex or controversial, oh, good Lord, there's so much legislation out there that's complex and controversial. Um, Clarify those points. And then when you make your ask, you're straight to the point, ask the closing question. That's the closing question in sales. Be silent and wait for the answer. If it takes 5 minutes, let them sit there and be uncomfortable. Follow-up questions. If yes, who else can you bring on board? Now, what is the opposition saying about this? That's very, very important, because now this is how you're going to develop your counter arguments to bring people that are on the fence over, and maybe even bring the opposition over. And then if they say no, what is it going to take to have your boss support this? So what is it going to take to have you support this? What's holding you back? Well, I'm a member of XYZ church across town, and we are really, really opposed to this. Find out what it is. Thank the legislator, send a written note to their office, keep building support, keep researching, keep the relationship around, and you'll notice the name of our 501c3 is Center for Common Ground. Because what I learned, because we were so bipartisan in our outreach on the Hill, was that I would have Democrats ask me what Republicans I was working with that they thought they might be able to do a bill with, and I would tell them. And then the next question was, well, will you go and talk to them about this bill? My answer is no, I'm not your mother. Go down the hall and talk to him or her yourself. So thank you. I am going to stop sharing and open it up for questions.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Miller.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea, for that. That was awesome. It was so packed with information that we need to move this thing forward. And we're going to allow Loretta to read the questions that go into the chat. So at this time, if you have questions, please put it in the chat. We want to be mindful of your time. This time together will end at 11 o'clock. So we'll stop just before 11 o'clock and give someone time to pray us out, and we'll move on. But until then, I would ask that you would place your questions in the chat, and Loretta will read those questions for Andrea to answer.
All right, I'm seeing some good questions in the chat already.
All right, so the first question, and there's a series of them in this one message, and I think you've covered a lot of it in your presentation, but I'm going to ask the questions anyway. The first one was, do we walk into the office in groups or as individuals?
Again, if you are an experienced lobbyist, I always went by myself. I would cover 30 offices on the Hill a day. And again, if I know the legislator is in there, they're getting 30 seconds of my time, kind of an are you in or are you out? As people that are potentially just getting started, go in groups of 3, and you will build your experience, comfort level, and expertise that way. I'm old and I'm mean. So you folks look like lovely, sweet, kind people.
All right, next question would be, is it effective for us to bring our letters of other constituents with us?
Yes, most definitely. And what I would say is, if you've got maybe just 2 or 3 letters from for different members, I would say this is a sample. And what they're going to see is that these aren't form letters, these are individual letters. Now, here's something that I would do. Normally, whenever we had a Hill visit plan, we would release the morning of the digital campaign where people from home would just send a form letter, because even if it's a form letter, the office still counts. We got 12 letters today in support of this bill. At the state level, 5 letters, and people are like, whoa, there's 5 people who know about this bill. Yes. So your
Okay,
letters are very impactful.
great. All right, should we plan to spend most of our time with those who are against us?
Um, in the latter part of my career, I did 50-50. If I was planning for our team to visit 140 legislators, we would normally be like 60-40. We would see 60% of the people who should be with us, and we would see 40% of the people who weren't with us, but we were building relationships. Because when we would hit that bill where we all agreed, it got to the point where I could get Republicans on bills faster than I could get Democrats. And that was because I always came to see them. And periodically they would say, you come here every month, at least every month, and we disagree with everything that you brought in. But this, we're there. We agree with you. Thank you for thinking of us.
Okay, I think you just kind of responded to the next series of questions, which is what should our disposition be? Are we there just to share our position? Or are we trying to actually have a conversation to change minds?
You are there to change hearts and minds. Yes. Yes, you are there to advocate for your position and to build support and change hearts or minds. You're turning no into maybe, you're turning maybe into yes, and you're turning yes into what can I do to help you? Yes.
Okay. I also believe we have the answer to how do we determine who is the bill champion versus the bill sponsors?
That actually takes quite a bit of research, and we can probably help you with that research. Meaning, are they talking about the bill on social media? Do we know that they go out and they've done a press conference on the bill? That's what we're looking for in champion. When I chose Jackie Spear to be our champion on removing the ratification deadline on the Equal Rights Amendment, I picked Jackie because I knew Jackie would fight for her bills. So when the legislators are standing in line, waiting to give their own 1 or 2 minute testimony on a bill, they can talk to each other. We can't be down there with them, but as a legislator, they can talk to other legislators. We gave Jackie a bill that had 104 co-sponsors. When Jackie brought out her new version of the bill, she brought it out with 110 co-sponsors. So that is the champion.
Okay. And then there's another question. How are nonprofits able to lobby without losing their 501c3 status?
Again, according to the IRS rules, as long as you do not expend more than 25% of your budget, you're fine. Again, as citizens, we are entitled to lobby. It's just as a C3, the IRS puts a limit on how much we can spend doing it.
Okay, and then there's another question. Do you have to be a 501c, 501c
No,
or
you don't need to
501h?
be anything. Right.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what you are. anybody can lobby. Now, again, there's a 501c4 and we're lobbying on issues. They could be there every single day the legislative session is open. We were working with the C4 in Virginia, so we had two people who lived only 3 miles from the General Assembly. They were there every day.
All right, are there any more questions? I would like to personally say to you, Sister Andrea, that this presentation has just been absolutely awesome. So very informative. I thank you for it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Very helpful to me being a newcomer onto this committee and wanting to work to help with the efforts that have been lined out.
Oh, thank you so very, very much. I absolutely love working with people on, lobbying. As I said, I was on the Hill from 2009 to 2019. And I show you one more thing on relationships. Oh yes, you are going to get these slides. I will be emailing these slides immediately once we are done. I want to show one more thing. You are going to love this, and we may need to work with your team. This is a new tool that I bought. It's Quorum. Now, your speaker is a Republican, but when I looked at his power map, is closer to Mary Gonzalez than almost anybody else when we look at his relationship strength. All right. And then he's also close to Dustin Burrows. And I just follow the size of the circles. All right. So we can work with you on figuring out relationships between people that are in the House, in the Senate, and where should you try to go first. And again, I always included leadership if I could, because I either needed leadership to stand down or stand up.
So
As I
that
said,
tool, will we have access to that tool?
No,
How do we get
no.
access to that tool? Or do we just have access to you?
You have access to Bill Track 50, so you should have accounts there, and then you can build your bill sheets and put those on your website. And as your bills move through the legislature, it will automatically update on your website that this bill is in this committee, it's reported out of Committee A, and now it's in Committee B. We do this as a concierge service. This tool is very, 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 very complicated to use. So you can't just kind of show up and figure out how to use it on your own. We've been through 5 trainings on it, and we're still learning how to use it. So we figure if we have other people to work with, and we are directed in our knowledge gathering, that will really help us learn faster. And we bought state and not federal because we wanted to work more with our state partners.
Looks like we have another question.
How accurate is the tool? When I looked at Virginia, it was painfully accurate.
Oh, well, I think that's a good thing, though.
Yes, it is. And again, it is looking at these folks who are in elected office. What do they share in common? Do they co-sponsor each other's legislation? Do they sit on the same committees? So all these things that I had to manually learn and kind of pull together on my own, it's now all there on the tool. So whoever has got large circles, they have got some type of relationship with them, and do they influence each other?